What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? How are we doing? Hopefully everyone is doing well, enjoying the day, living life, probably with a smile on your face because NFL football is officially back this week. We got Eagles, Cowboys. I'm recording this a little over 48 hours away, and obviously college football is in full swing. So a couple football thoughts, some big picture picks, predictions, something on Bill Belichick that I was texting around with some buddies in the NFL that has nothing to do with what we witnessed in him getting his ass kicked by TCU that honestly is even more embarrassing to me. A couple other football things I'll chime in on. Jaxson Dart's the backup quarterback. The Patriots, none of their team captains from 2024 are back on the team. Saw a little graphic today. Vrabel, hey, man, get to start fresh. So we will dive into some football, but before we do, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners in the official ticketing app of this place. You want to go to one of these NFL games? We're here. Do you want to go to one of these college games this fall? We're here. Maria was showing me this concert coming to Arizona at Chase Field, which is honestly a terrible baseball stadium. But I was like, God, I kind of want to go to this concert. It's in November. I'm like, hey, if you're feeling up for it, I know some people that know some people. I got an app on my phone, press a couple buttons, and we're there. Because GameTime, easiest app I've ever used, and trust me, I've used them all. Been going to games for 20 years now, consistently, and it does not get any easier to use. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Okay, well, let's just start with this. I've seen a lot of talk on the internet. I was at the gym this morning. I looked up. Everyone was screaming at each other on the television shows about the Micah Parsons back situation with Green Bay. Listen, teams have a lot of leverage in these situations. They can just kind of try to smoke you out, right, and do nothing and just go, I bet you're not going to miss games. Where the player can be in a difficult situation, especially nowadays where if you hold out and you're a veteran player, they can fine you and you can't get the money back. It just becomes complicated. But this whole notion with the back injury, if you think there's a reason that 16 and 17-year-olds, when they get their license, have to pay a lot for insurance. There's an enormous risk when you give a 17-year-old the car keys to the Suburban, right? He's much more likely to get into an accident. Why? He hasn't been driving very long. And let's face it, especially young boys, we do dumbass shit behind the wheel. And insurance companies go, well, we're going to charge you a lot. If you think that a team would trade multiple first-round picks and then give a historic amount of money for a guy with a back injury, I want to know what you're smoking. The reason I'm out on the Rams, their quarterback, potential Hall of Famer, his back's messed up. And yeah, he might play week 1. And hell, he could play all of September. You have no clue when that thing flares up. Could be on a Tuesday. Could be on a Friday. Could be the morning of a game. And all of a sudden he's like, I do not feel right. I'll never forget, Steve Kerr literally couldn't coach a basketball team because of his back. It is by far, at least if you have something with your foot, something with your elbow, it becomes very black and white, typically, with an injury. It's like, okay, if we get this surgery, this will happen. With the back, the unknowns are kind of like the brain. So you can throw around discs and L4s and L5s. Here's what I know. The Packers would never have given the thumbs up on this trade if there was a problem with the back. Now, if you're the Cowboys, it's over. This thing, regardless what the nail in the coffin was, the straw that broke the camel's back, the reason that you pulled the trigger, who cares? He's not your problem anymore. He's the Packers. But if you think he might need an epidural to play Sunday, do you think the Packers just gave this guy a historic amount of money, is going to put a shot into his back so he can play week 1 of the first moment they give him a direct deposit for this contract? You're crazy. Because Gutekunst couldn't risk his career, because that would be a career ender, at least in Green Bay, if this guy had a messed up back and couldn't play. There's no way they would greenlight it. So this story, I'm glad it's about to go away and he can just play and we can all move forward and the Cowboys can move forward, probably getting their ass kicked. Uh, People like Middlekauff, what are your predictions? Who do you like in each division? Who are your playoff teams? I find that stuff kind of boring, honestly. And luckily, like in the podcast space we're in, I don't have to do that. I can kind of do whatever I want. And I think we'd all agree, like we'd all be on the same page. There's a group, if you want to be conservative, 4 or 5 teams. If you want to be a little more aggressive, 8, 9 teams that can win the Super Bowl. There's easily half the league that doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell. I think we all agree there is a group of the Eagles, the Bills, the Ravens, and the Chiefs, right? Those 3 teams in the AFC have consistently been in the mix the last couple of years. The Chiefs for more than half a decade, and the Eagles have been 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls and look absolutely loaded on paper. They're going to be really, really good. Now, the Packers, I like to win the division. I like, clearly, in theory, more now with Micah Parsons. I do think that adds a wrinkle to inside the locker room, the money dynamics, how he embraces it all. But if it goes well, their ceiling is clearly now much higher. And I would put them right there with Washington, Detroit as a team that would not shock me at all if they are in the NFC Championship game. I think the NFC can be a little more difficult because if you want to say everything goes right in Denver, I think they could be right in the mix. If you want to say the offense is greatly improved in Houston, I'd be like, I could see them being right in the mix, right? Because both those 2 teams' defense are going to be really good. Obviously, Sean Payton's resume speaks for itself, and I'm a big believer in DeMeco Ryans. I think the AFC top to bottom is clearly better, which makes it more difficult. Like, if the Chiefs are going to keep going to the Super Bowl, even if they lose some of these Super Bowls, what they're doing winning these playoff games is fucking insane. I mean, it really is, right? Think about the Eagles got a Packer team that wasn't really that good last year, at least wasn't playing that well coming in. And then they got a Washington team in the championship game that they were clearly way better than, and then just curb stomped them. Hell, they beat the shit out of the Chiefs. So their road was a little bit easier than, having to play Buffalo, having to play ball. It's just harder. It just is. Because anytime you got to play Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, potentially Joe Burrow, it is difficult. But I think it's hard for me to bet against the Eagles. I'd be a little surprised. It's football. Guys can get injured. Obviously, they have a new play caller, though he's been there, which I don't think you can just be confident on because a couple years ago, I would have said the same thing, and then it was kind of a disaster. But I'd be a little surprised if there aren't major injuries if the Eagles aren't at minimum in the Final Four and representing the NFC. I've picked the Bills before, and they've let me down. I picked against the Chiefs, and they've basically done it every time. I rarely ever pick the Ravens because until Lamar does it, I do believe he can do it. But until he does it, I'm not picking them. I like Denver a lot this season, and Houston's kind of my wild card because I think their defense might be the number 1 defense. And if C.J. Stroud's a good player, you're going to be a major factor. But I think that's pretty clear. We are extremely excited to announce our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. Everyone knows and loves their hotels and casinos, but now you can use the top-rated Hard Rock Bet sportsbook to place all your NFL bets this season. Hard Rock Bet is the only legal sportsbook in the state of Florida and is also available in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, and Colorado, with more states to come. You can also play on Hard Rock Bet's online casino if you are in New Jersey. As we gear up for the NFL season, sign up for Hard Rock Bet and make a $5 bet, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Head over to Hard Rock Bet, sign up, and make your first deposit today. I do think there's one team in the NFC that, like, we had a meeting on my show maybe like a month ago, and one of the guys behind the scenes, Noah, was like throwing out some bets he liked. And I once he said it, I'm like, I kind of loved it. Is Baker Mayfield about 25-1 to win the MVP? Well, if you like Baker Mayfield to win the MVP, you got to like Tampa Bay. And if you like Baker Mayfield to win the MVP, if he plays like he did last year and they win 12 or 13 games, more than likely they're a 2 or 3 seed, right? I mean, who knows? If things go really well, 13 or 14, they could be the number 1 seed. And all of a sudden, maybe they're in the mix to be going up against the Eagles, who actually they've played well against the last couple of years. So that is one bet, and I've mentioned this before. Listen, you're not getting great odds on all the top quarterbacks. you would say Joe Burrow could have a huge season, but like I'm not picking the Bengals to make the playoffs. Actually, I think the Bengals and the Chargers miss the playoffs this year. I just think Cincinnati, you can't be that shitty at defense. You really can't be that shitty at defense and me to take you seriously. Like we have seen a lot of teams over the history of football have great offenses and just come up short. I'm not even talking about come up short in the playoffs or the Super Bowl. I'm talking just literally in games throughout the season. So, like, I'm out on Cincinnati, not because I don't love Joe Burrow and their offense. And it's the same reason I'm kind of out on the Chargers. You lose a star left tackle, which messes up your offensive line. Your offense to begin with wasn't great. Your margin for error was already pretty small. Like, I think both these two teams are probably like 9-ish wins. And I think the Patriots get in this year. The one team, the one sleeper team I got, you can get almost 4-1 the Titans to make the playoffs. I actually think the Titans could be pretty solid this year. Why? I'm a believer in Cam Ward. And if Cam Ward's good, like that team was a couple awful plays away from Will Levis from instead of drafting one, drafting like 10th. And their quarterback play was atrocious. Early on in the season, their defense wasn't bad. So if Cam Ward is good, I don't think it's crazy that the Titans are just like a competitive team. Now, do I think they are the equivalent of what Washington was last year? No. But I definitely think that if you tell me they're in the wild card mix come December, I think it's very believable. And I've been saying this for a while. I think the best value on the board is Seattle at 5-1 to win the division. I mean, most teams that they had the same record as the Rams that won the division last year, the same exact record. The Rams, their starting quarterback at any moment could just be out a month with a fucked up back. And then they got to go to Jimmy Garoppolo or Stenson Bennett. So Seattle won 10 games last year. They have an improved roster. I think Sam Darnold's a better player than Geno Smith. So you can get them 5-1 to win the division. Now, I'm not saying they're gonna win the division. I'm just saying from a value perspective, that's fantastic. Hell, the Packers, who I liked a lot pre Micah Parsons, were like plus 250. That's like half the odds of what Seattle is going into the season when they literally won 10 games last year. They have a coach who we know is good. Like he proved it. It's not like a first time. It's not a Ben Johnson situation where it's like listen, I'm kind of out on the Bears. Not because I don't like Ben Johnson. Not because I don't think Dennis Allen's a good defensive coordinator. I just think this thing's going to be weird. Not like they're going to suck and bottom out, but I do think that they will not live up to the expectation of Ben Johnson's here, he'll save Caleb, and everything will be right. Same thing with Minnesota. It's like, I don't really know. I love their coaching staff, obviously like their roster, but it's just hard. When you have an unknown at quarterback, we're basically just kind of could be great. Because at least I know with Cam Ward coming from college, they have been depending on this guy throwing the ball for years. Washington State and Miami. So yeah, the NFL is a lot different than Miami playing Boston College. But in terms of, hey, this game, we're going to need you to carry us. He's been doing it for like 3 years. In the Pac-12 at Washington State, and then obviously last year at Miami. J.J. never was asked to play like that. And so if they get in situations like that's how Sam was playing last year, because that's how Washington was kind of built. Now, you could say they're going to run the ball more this year. They got Jordan Mason to go with Aaron Jones. Yeah, maybe. I got to see it first. So I like Minnesota more than Chicago, but I think both those are pretty big wild cards with the quarterback. I just got more questions about teams in the AFC than the NFC, or the NFC than the AFC. Like Detroit, who doesn't like their roster? It's really good. They got a bunch of stud players. They've got like 4 or 5 guys that are under 25 that are some of the best players in the league. They have a group of like 6, 7 guys on their team that is good of a nucleus as any in the NFL. But when you change an offensive coordinator, like Ben Johnson wasn't just good, he was great. And this Johnny Morton guy, I always get a little nervous when you have a coach that I'm pretty sure Johnny Morton's like 55 years old. Johnny Morton Jr. He is 53. And am I looking at the wrong guy? I'm looking at the wrong guy here. I'm looking at the right guy now. He is 55. 55-year-old. So look at some of the star offensive coordinators recently in the NFL. Kyle, Sean, LaFleur, O'Connell, Ben Johnson. A lot of these guys are younger. So you haven't got your opportunity in all these years to shine in a league that yearns for offensive guys that are good with the quarterback, good with the offense. This guy was the wide receiver coach for Jim Harbaugh from 2011 to 2014 with the San Francisco 49ers. And it just didn't materialize. It's like you've been this offensive senior assistant. Doesn't mean that he can't be good, but a little weird. I just got that situation red flag. I would say more than likely there's a little bit of a comeback to earth. Still being good, but nowhere as dominant as they've been because it's just he's not as good as Ben Johnson. We saw it a couple years ago with Brian Johnson taking over for Shane Steichen. There's going to be a drop-off. Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. Data brokers make profit off all of our data. Why? Because it's a commodity. Anyone on the web can buy our private details, from identity theft to phishing details. The data brokers sell our name, our contact information, social security, home address, and information about our family members. I'm tired of it. I don't want to get text messages. I don't want to get any more phone calls. And as someone who has an active online presence, as I'm sure a lot of people do, we are very, very vulnerable. So take control of your own data and keep your private life by signing up for Delete Me. Now, at a special discount for our listeners. Today, get 20% off your Delete Me plan by texting JOHN to 64000. The only way to get 20% off is to text John, JOHN, to 64000. That's 64,000. That's John to 64,000, 64000. Message and data rates apply. One thing I do want to talk about is Bill Belichick. And on Monday night, we did a podcast the other night. He got his ass kicked. We all saw it. It was ugly. It was embarrassing. And this has nothing to do with that. In the end, in college football, when you're a big school, scouts are coming to your program constantly. And I never actually did a school visit to this place, but have been told by literally everyone I know that the best school in America to deal with as a scout, as a GM, as a person, as just anyone in the NFL, not even close, was Alabama. The doors were open literally 24/7. As a buddy described it to me one time, that if you called someone at 2 or 3 in the morning and needed to get in for something, they would have someone at the front door opening it for you. They were as NFL friendly as you could possibly be. One guy who's taken a lot of shit the last couple of years is Lincoln Riley. He's been at USC. It hasn't been going that well. He closes practice, closes to NFL scouts. It's like, why are you doing that? Like, we're all in this together. Now, one thing I had always heard about Gus Malzahn when he was at Auburn, he used to close practice as the season went on because he thought that a lot of scouts wanted to curry favor with Nick Saban, and they would steal things that were happening at practice or make notes of it and give it to Coach Saban so he would have an advantage when they played the Iron Bowl. Even though I'm not saying that's never happened in the history of the sport. I also understand where Gus being a little insecure, he's not Nick. Like, of course, if they have to choose one guy to get in with, it would be Saban. He was just very not confident in the situation, right? So he would close practice as the season went on, and it was very unfriendly to the NFL scouts. Well, one thing that I was told is that, and there was a report last night, this is what got my mind going, is Pete Thamel of ESPN reported that Bill Belichick has made it very difficult on the scouting community so far this fall. Because basically the NFL training camp starts, right, July 20th to 24th. Most of the scouts go, like the college scouts go, give or take 7 to 10 days at their NFL facility, at the, wherever they're holding training camp, do a bunch of stuff with the GM, go to practice, and then they go out on the road and they start hitting schools, right? Because a lot of these guys, these sophomores becoming juniors that are going to be stars, they're now draft eligible, and some of these seniors, and you start getting information on these players. You start gathering information, right? They haven't played a game, but for the next couple weeks before the college season starts, you're hitting all the big schools. And if you knock on Alabama's door or you knock on Texas's door, a lot of these programs are like, come on in. You meet with a pro liaison, which typically is like the GM or a personnel guy who knows the players well, and they just break it down from a player to the main thing, especially during the fall, is the person, the character, what he's like in the program. It can be a little more difficult now with the transfer portal, way more difficult. So you got to it takes a little more time gathering the off the field information when a guy's been moving schools. But any guy that's been in the program for a couple years, you can talk to people and they give you a bunch of information. Well, Belichick hasn't been very accommodating. And I was told by multiple people that he has banned the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots, if you're a scout for the New England Patriots, you are not allowed at the University of North Carolina, which is funny, but also kind of embarrassing. Because Bill Belichick, for multiple decades, my guess is made over $200 million working for Robert Kraft. Became an absolute NFL legend, winning Super Bowls, going to Super Bowls, and just kicking the shit out of everybody with Tom Brady. And then it got ugly, and he lost, and he got fired. You know what that's called? Football. Tom Landry got fired. Andy Reid got fired. Pete Carroll's been fired. People get fired. But to ban the New England Patriots is like an FU to Robert Kraft. Guess what Robert Kraft's not doing? Ever making a school call in the history of his life. He's never going to any of these universities collect. It's just some random kid, random guy that works for Elliott Wolf going to the school. One, North Carolina doesn't have much talent right now. But regardless, I do think, I understand being old, bitter, grouchy, and angry if life's been shitty, right? If you're lonely, if your financial situation's bad, if you have no hope in life, just being miserable, that is understandable. Now, I wouldn't choose that mindset. I think it'll just lead you to more misery. It's a shitty way to live. But when you're super rich and life's going pretty well, someone just paid you $10 million to coach the University of North Carolina when no one else would hire you. It's a beautiful campus by all accounts. Everyone on campus was fired up to watch your game. It's pretty exciting. You were a really big deal. They made you Monday Night Football. Life's not that shitty for Bill Belichick. Yet he is this egotistical, angry, grouchy, just asshole right now. And listen, that's always been his thing. Well, it's much more understandable and easy to deal with when you're winning. When you're losing, and what we witnessed last night, no one's going to handle that stuff very well. And the thing I was thinking about, once you ban all the scouts and make it hard for the scouts and ban the New England Patriots, and maybe Bill knows this, clearly, he's never getting a job in the NFL again. Because even if it goes well in a couple years in New England or in North Carolina, he'd be 75, 76 years old. This is it. And he knows it. But to go out like this honestly kind of symbolizes who Bill Belichick is. Petty, vindictive. I understand it with Goodell, having the issues you had when you felt you got fined or Brady got suspended and whatever, and it was unfair. In this situation, it just feels kind of low level. It really does. Because I asked a couple people, have you ever heard about this? Because guess what? A lot of people in the NFL have been fired. A lot of head coaches have been fired and then gone on to college to become head coaches. Do you know what none of them have ever done, to my knowledge? Ban the team that fired them. And Belichick isn't just synonymous with the Patriots. He is famous because of the Patriots. He's interwoven into them. So I understand having a bad divorce. But, bro, you went 4-12. If she dumps you because you lose your job, you're miserable, you don't do anything, and you're potentially violent, hard to blame her, right? Does anyone really blame Robert Kraft for firing you? It was time. You weren't just there 10 years, 20 years. You were there 23 years. It was a long freaking time. And it had run its course. I just can't understand. And I was thinking about this. I mentioned this on Monday night. He can't fake his personality, which I appreciate in most people, but now in his job, there is somewhat of a political angle to it. You kind of got to put on a brave face and just pretend to be semi-happy. Sometimes in college football. Do you think every day Nick Saban wanted to smile when he just knew hey, recruits are going to be watching, or to do this media hit, or to do whatever? Of course not. Well, Belichick's never had to do any of that because in the pros, none of that matters. In college, it kind of does. So now the NFL people are like, God, this guy, what the fuck is wrong with Bill? And most people would just be like, yeah, this is who he's always kind of been. Which, listen, you can make excuses when you're winning 13, 14 games and go into the Super Bowl. You just become a laughing stock when you start losing by 40 points and have a 4-8 season. So that's what they look like they got. And I can't imagine that Mike Lombardi, who is like, they've said they're the 33rd team. Like that's what they want to do. Well, we know who the boss is. The guy making $10 million. He's the guy banning New England. He's the guy making it hard on the scouts, which I just think he put out a two deep yesterday, which was completely blank. It's like, bro, you're kind of turning into a joke. It's kind of sad. And I'm a defender of Belichick. I'm a fan. I'm the guy that's been calling him the greatest coach I've ever seen forever. And I stand by what I said based on what I saw in his heyday. But what's going on right now? Jerry Jones gets made fun of a lot for being old and senile. What the hell's happened to Belichick? A couple other things. Jaxson Dart, the backup. There's certain things you can see coming from a mile away. Sometimes when you're like, when you go out for cocktails or you have a friend that starts dating someone and you come home with your significant other and you're like, they're never going to last. And they don't. Right. Or you have a buddy that gets into a business. He's like, I'm telling you, bro, just either invest or this thing's going to be big. And you're like, this thing's got no shot. Like you just know, like from the jump. And sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes you're like, damn, this is going to work. Like you eat at a restaurant, you're like, this food's good. This thing's going to be a hit in this town. Jaxson Dart's the backup quarterback. You can see what's going to happen coming from a mile away. Russell Wilson's giant career is hanging by a shoestring, and that shoestring is going to rip apart every single day. I'm not even talking on Sundays. I'm talking Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That I have a hard time seeing Jaxson Dart not being in the game by the end of the month. I mean, I really do, and I think that the way he played this fall, the pressure that's on the head coach, the fan base, like fan bases do have some juice. Like obviously everyone wants Kalen DeBoer fired. Where there comes to a line where it's like, well, are you going to pay the $70 million buyout? Where it gets complicated. In the NFL, it's not that complicated. If Brian Dayball does not win, he's gone. And the one way that you don't have to totally win, like win some games, but also keep your job, is to go, this is my quarterback. This quarterback looks good with me, and I'm a quarterback guy. And that could save the guy's gig. So I would imagine Jaxson Dart is inserted really, really quick because I know football fans, and no one's going to want to watch Russell Wilson dinking and dunking for 17 points a game. And listen, that might be what Jaxson Dart ends up doing as a rookie, but I would rather watch that as a fan, as an owner, as a GM than anything Russell Wilson's bringing to the table in 2025. It's funny, like the Patriots, and just anytime you hire a new coach, for the most part, when you've been really bad, it's like, blow this bitch up. And Pete Carroll got there and he's like, I want Max Crosby, extend him. Spytek's like, extend him. Colton Miller, like this guy, extend him. Sometimes you go to a place and they got pieces. Other times you go to a place, you're like, this thing needs to be burned to the studs. I've always said this about the Oakland Coliseum, where the Raiders and A's used to play. They should take dynamite around that whole thing and blow it to fucking smithereens. And that was when I thought maybe teams would stay. They've all left. Everyone's gone. That thing, every day thing's erect is insane. It's the biggest dump I've ever been in my entire life. House, stadium, any structure. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than that place. It's no different in teams. Sometimes you show up, you're like, what is going on here? I can't even imagine what Mike Vrabel walked into. Now, listen, some of the captains, it's not like, Jacoby Brissett's a high level guy. But if Jacoby Brissett's a captain on your team in 2024, you're going to lose a lot of games. So I'm high on New England this year. Now, I think their ceiling is somewhat limited just because explosive players on offense, beside the running back, not that many. We have to see with the quarterback. I'm just a believer in the head coach. I'm a believer in the system. I'm a believer also in their schedule. So 9-10 wins is probably the ceiling, but I would expect a very, very quick turnaround.